Good morning and welcome to today's NCPDP webinar, Web-Enabled Data Dictionary and ECL. For Q&A purposes today, you can ask a question at any time during the webinar by typing in the question pane on your GoToWebinar toolbar. All questions will be addressed at the conclusion of the webinar as time permits. Our speakers today will be Margaret Weicker, Director of Standards Development for NCPDP, Patsy McElroy, Manager of Standards Development for NCPDP, and Terry Fortin, Standards Specialist for NCPDP. I will now turn today's presentation over to Margaret.
Thanks, Wendy. And welcome, everyone. Hopefully everybody can see my screen. It is the ncpdp.org website. So what I'm going to do is walk through how you set up a proxy, and I'll talk a little bit about what a proxy is, and then how, as a member, you can access the web-based data dictionary and ECL. So from the NCPDP home screen, you would access your member portal. So mine's automatically connected to where I don't have to enter my password and ID every time. So you may want to consider doing that if you don't have that enabled already. So you will see on the screen where there is a hyperlink to something called the Web-Based Data Dictionary and ECL proxy designation. In our user group meetings that we held and in the demonstrations that we have had at the annual conference last year and then in the brown bag lunch series that we had, members said that they weren't the ones necessarily needing the access to the ECL, to the data dictionary, to the standards, that it would be their technical people. So today they might take the data dictionary or the ECL, write up their change request and give it to the technical people, as well as then share the data dictionary or ECL. So there would need to be a mechanism to have that going forward, since PDFs will no longer be produced for the data dictionary and ECL. So we set up something what we call the proxy, and this is a designation that you as a member give another non-member or a member of your company access to the data dictionary and ECL. They will only have access to the web-enabled data dictionary and ECL and not any of the other NCPDP standards or the members-only site or anything like that. So we have allowed 3 individuals, non-NCPDP members, per member. So for each NCPDP member, you can designate up to 3 proxies. So it's fairly simple. You enter their name and their email address. And then you hit the add button. It has a pop-up that says that this will be immediate, and are you sure you want to have this person listed as a proxy? So I'm going to click OK. Then if you scroll down a little bit more, you will see your designee list. You will see the proxy that I just entered, which would be the last one, and for the demonstration purposes, I already went in and added a proxy. Now, let's say I want to remove a proxy. You would just click the remove button. It would give you a pop-up that says, are you sure you want to delete? And then you would press OK if you did. So I've already added the M. Weicker Gmail as a designee. And once that email clicks and hit add, that person will receive an email. And this is the email they would receive. and basically states they've been added as a proxy. It names the person who added them, and it allows them, tells them, what they have access to, as well as cautioning them on our copyright statement. So when I would receive this email, I would go click on this URL. We suggest that that URL be bookmarked, and the individual would enter their email address and their password and click submit, and then that would take them to the web-based data dictionary and ECL. So it's a fairly straightforward process. As a member, you are responsible for maintaining your proxy designation list. NCPDP will not do that. However, if you have a problem or something's not quite working right, by all means contact us and we can assist with that. So going back to our member portal screen, as a member, if you scroll down on the left-hand side, you will see two lightly blue boxes called the Web-Enabled Data Dictionary Lookup and another called the Web-Enabled ECL Lookup. So I'm going to click the Data Dictionary, and up comes the Data Dictionary. Let me walk you through what this screen is showing you. At the top, you see the question mark. That is help. We have developed, Terry has, data dictionary help and ECL help through a series of questions and answers. There's screen prints. So if you have a question, I strongly urge you to look in the help first. But then if you don't see it listed and you have the question, then you can press the email, and that's a contact us, and up will pop a email, and I can go ahead, and you just type in your question or concern or some, whatever you would like us to answer, and that will then in turn be sent to Patsy. So at the top in this dark gray box, you will see 4 dates. The 2017-01 Data Dictionary and ECL is being loaded currently, and we hope to have that available very soon. But these are the dates of the Data Dictionary, and then the ECL will also have the corresponding dates. So you would select which version of the Data Dictionary you would like to look at. The additional information is the information on the left. There is the copyright statement. There is the introduction to the data dictionary. If you remember, our PDF version of the data dictionary had front matter explaining certain things in the dictionary. So we have not lost all of the reference type of information from the data dictionary. It has been loaded into the additional information. There is the DERF and new project form calendar. There was an appendix in the data dictionary and ECL around the HITSB harmonization effort that took place. So this has been put in additional information. Also, we have a standards matrix, and that is listed. We have the DERF ballots. So if I pick the 2016 ballots, you will see the ballot, the ballot number, the DERFs associated with that ballot, the standards, the outcome, the dates of the data dictionary, ECL, etc. If there was an emergency ECL addendum, it would list that. And then you have the publication modifications. So for each version, you would have the actual modifications that were done. We added these fields, we changed the field size, we changed the field name, etc. Basically what occurs today. So that's the additional information. You can search the data dictionary, or originally pull up the data dictionary, I guess I should say, in either name, order, or number order. If you're pulling up by number order, you will see the little pop-up. And XML fields do not have a number associated with them like a telecom data element would, or audit, or post-adjudication. So if you're looking for an XML data element, you would need to use the name, because in the number list they will not appear because they don't have an actual number. Also, as warning, if you use Chrome as your mechanism to explore the internet, depending upon how you have the settings, you may have to accept the pop-up blocker for this site. We have had reports where the pop-up is getting blocked. All you do is accept the pop-up from the site, and you can then proceed to it. But we have had some reports of instances in Chrome where you get the pop-up. So we'll go ahead and select the name order. And what you can see on the left side are obviously the letters of the alphabet. This can be shrunk to where you would get a full screen view as well. So if we'll just start with the A, and by alphabetically listing all of the A's, you will see. Now, if you look at like additional message information, you will notice that it has this sign by it, and underneath it you will see where it lists 3 different standard formats. So if I want to look for the additional message information for the telecom standard, it would come in and tell me, here's the definition, and, you know, the length is 1 to 40, and that's what's used in telecom. If I want to look at formulary and benefit, or the FERS standard, this information, it's 100 characters in length. And then for the prior auth and prescription transfer, this field is 200 in length, and you will see the legend. So that's what, if you see this little box or check over here, that means that there are multiples of something. So if you look at adjustment reason code, you will see that there's 2 different versions, so to speak, based upon the standard. So it lists all of them. So we'll go down to reject code, the R's, and go to reject code. And this one, when you hit the reject code, it will list the standards, and then this will also appear to assist you in which standard you may be looking at. So not all of us have all of these codes memorized or the keys memorized, so this is meant as a way to assist. So I could pull up the reject codes by this. And then it tells me all of the standard formats that is used in, the description, etc. Now, reject codes in today's document have some verbiage that precede the actual code values. So the additional information for reject codes, we have not lost it. We have just made it a background separate type of document that you can view. I'll close that. Then since we're in the data dictionary, it does have values. These are our values because it's got an external code list. If the values are those of an other external code list, it will list the URL. So, for example, if we look at species, you'll see that it has that the values come from SNOMED. So if I click on that, I will have additional information, and it will list the actual code set that it comes from and the source of that code set. And this is a hyperlink that will then take you to the SNOMED list. So this is what happens when the external code list is not one owned and maintained by NCPDP. You'll have this abstract and then a hyperlink to the source that does. So that's the data dictionary piece of this. And then if you click on the external code list piece, it will take you to the external code list as a separate page. It'll open up a separate page for you. So I want to now go see the external code list. Let me go over here since I already have it opened up. And what you'll see on this screen is very similar to what was on the data dictionary screen. And remember, you can also, if you're not hyperlinking, you know, the data element doesn't have an ECL, but there may be, you just want to look up an ECL, you can also do that by your going back to your member portal and just looking at the ECL. So in reject code, and this is the ECL, so we still have the help, we have the email, we have the versions of the ECL, again, by name and number, and again, the XML fields aren't under the number category because they don't have numbers. You can search, and this is available both in the data dictionary and the ECL on the standards. So, you know, from a data dictionary point of view, I might want to know what are all of the data elements used in the audit transaction or the formulary and benefit transaction. So if you selected that, it would just list those data elements, those external code lists that are used in that particular standard. You can select, and this would search the comments, examples, descriptions, any field limitations, the name, if there was a telecom emergency implementation date, and that you would see primarily on reject codes, and then if you want to search for something in particular from the value description. On the far right, you'll see where it says active, and then there'll be a yes and a no. If you select no, this will provide you with a list of the sunsetted codes. So if you look, you'll see where not all the alphabet, so to speak, is listed, and that is why. So if you want to see something about the adjuster ID qualifier and what was sunsetted, this is a mechanism to allow you to do that. So we'll go back to the active one, which shows them all. Then we have what are called shared code lists, to where there's a list that is used by multiple data elements. So we call these shared code lists. They were primarily the appendices that exist in the ECL. And what we've done is mark them as shared and had the pull down to where they're easily accessible. So from a reject code perspective, you can search, since I pulled up that data element, you can search then within the reject code. And you can search via the code value, a comment, the field number possibly into error, and that's primarily used on those data elements that are in the telecom standard. If you want to find all of the reject codes that have a particular emergency implementation date for telecom, you can search on that. You can search on the value descriptions as well as the value limitations. And this search is a search of the reject codes. So if you search up the upper level, that is for the entire ECL but searching at this level searches the particular code that you have pulled up and want to find out. So if we look at a shared code list, I will see that there's some data elements called the drug DB code qualifier and the product, so the drug reference values. So if we pull up this list, and this is used in the formulary and benefit standard, you will see a list of all of them. And if you click on the shared code list button, what it will do, it creates basically a table that was very similar to what was in the appendices, where you will have the definition, you'll have the value, and at the top it will list all of the data elements that share this code value. And then of course you'll have the little dot that'll indicate that this is a valid value for that particular data element. As an example, the RX norm branded package has a value, but it's only used in the drug DB code qualifier. So these aren't checked, so this code could not be used, for example, into the product reference qualifier. And then, of course, you have the search again. And what we've done is on these type of searches, we have tried to limit it to, or have the search be on the actual items that are in that particular code list. So there's obviously a value and a description. So it would search on those. So field number in error will not appear because that's not part of this code list. So the searches we've tried to make specific to the particular code set that it's looking at. So that's how you would do the shared code list and finding what's shared and then looking at the information contained there. So basically this collapses, so if you wanted to see the full, as I said before, if I could click on that correctly, you would then have the full screen if you needed to. Otherwise, you know, it just pops up here and you can pick those. And then you have the scroll button on this side, and then obviously you have the scroll on the actual screen. So at a high level, that is the Web-Enabled Data Dictionary and ECL. I would like to ask everybody to go in, look at it, use it. I have found it to be a useful resource. It's a quick way to find certain things. So we had a DERF recently that we were changing fill and refill. So, you know, previously I would have to go into the PDF and, you know, find fill and do a search on that. This also allows that as well. Oh, sorry about that. I want to search on the name for anything for fill. And then it brings up all of the data elements that had the word fill associated in them. So it will do a partial search as well as then, you know, a full search. So there's an item there. Also, I could go in and want to see fill for a particular standard that I'm modifying. So maybe I want to see what's in telecom. It looks like this is then the subset that's actually used in telecom that had the word fill associated with them. So if I wanted to narrow down that search further, or I want to find all the data elements used in telecom, obviously you wouldn't have a search key. You would just come in and list all of those. And then, of course, we didn't look at number, but we can. And because I have this search on, it limited that as well. So I'll do an all first to reset. And then I can come in and do telecom. And it would show me just those that are listed for telecom. And as I would expect, there's some in each of these range of numbers that are used in telecom. So a lot of different ways to slice and dice the data dictionary and ECL. We are also implementing some additional searches that will hopefully be available in the next 6 to 8 months. But as I mentioned before, there is the email capability from the data dictionary and the ECL. So if you have a question, comment, concern, if you would like a particular search to be available, you can send us that as well. Or if you have other type of product suggestions, enhancements, those type of things, you can send those along as well. I can't promise that we will make or perform all of the enhancements that we get, but we will definitely look at them and see if we can get them implemented in the next, let's say, by the end of the year. So that's the demo, and we have time for Q&A. So if you have a question, I believe, Wendy, you wanted to type it in the chat box.
Yes, thank you, Margaret. If you could type it in the question pane on your GoToWebinar toolbar. And we do have some questions ready. Before we begin the Q&A today, I'd like to let everyone know this webinar is being recorded, and it will be available on NCPDP's website and YouTube channel. So our first
and Margaret, oh, sorry. This is Terry. Margaret, I just thought of two things. Two things you may want to show was what is available in additional info under ECL, and then also the ability to search by the emergency ECL for telecom.
Okay. Thanks, Terry. Yes, because the additional info in the ECL is different than the additional info that's in the data dictionary. Some of it is the same, like the calendar, but some of it is different. So there's the introduction to it. Again, the same as existed in the current. There's a publication implementation chart. This was previously buried in another document, and what we did was pull it out and make its own. Again, the standard matrix is the same as data dictionary. The use of these, the external code lists and vocabularies, this is part of the ECL today with the descriptions, the hyperlinks work. And then we have the quick reference chart that exists as well. We have a process overview that basically takes the ECL process document as well as the emergency ECL process document that exists today on the site, and we have broken them out into sections and placed them here. Then we have the emergency addendum, and it lists the values. And this is the publication releases. Again, the ballots, that's the same as that on the data dictionary. And then the publication modifications would be the publication modifications that are relevant to the ECL versus the data dictionary. So if I go into all, let's see, take that out. So I can get to the reject code list. in this instance, close that screen so I can get to my scroll bar. Terry, do you remember an ECL, emergency ECL implementation date?
Just do July, 2016, I believe. Or maybe it's July 1, 2016.
Okay.
That search is actually also on the global level as well.
Right. So you'll see these are the code values that are part of the July 1st ECL for telecom. Oh, and I didn't mention this when I was doing this. Also, I chose to look at the 2016-10 ECL, and this field reject code, of course, has been in existence for many, many years, but it also lists the previous ECL versions for the reject code. So if you wanted to know what was in 2016-07, you would just click on it, and it would take you there. Okay. All right, Wendy, I think, oh, before we go to a question, I don't know how many people noticed this, but there is a handout, and it is hyperlinked, so it would open up, and it's basically some Q&As in regard to this project.
And Margaret, this is Patsy. Before you go any further, would you click on the word reject code on the far left to show them that if you don't know what the E, the N, the A, the V, and all that means, this gives you a list of the standard designation.
Right. And that would be similar for record type as well. And then it also lists all of the standards with the key associated with them. And then the R would be for rebates, so there'd be values for rebates for this particular field.
And what this normally means is that there's some difference between that field in those standards versus the other lined standards. So it might be a format, it might be a definition, but there is a difference.
And this difference that pops out is this is a 3-byte field, and this is a 2-byte field. And I'm sure there may be others, but that one just popped out. Okay. Now, Wendy, I think we're ready for Q&A.
Okay. Our first question, will the NCPDP Excel documents still be made available?
And
I'm guessing that's the reject code, I wonder.
Yeah.
I wonder.
These are data elements and the reject code descriptions. These are in the Excel format.
Okay. The reject code listing in an Excel format will still be produced, and we will hyperlink it as additional background/document when, and we're going to start that at the 2017-01. So today I can't demonstrate it, but for the 2017-01, that document will be available, which lists the reject code in the description. The other Excel document that was produced will no longer be produced.
Okay, our next question. I'm trying to follow the link on the left to the web-enabled data dictionary lookup. The data dictionary is not populating. Please advise. Okay,
so I'm assuming the person has logged into their member portal, or I don't think they would even see this. You have to click on the grade part that has the little magnifying glass, I guess is the best way to describe that. And let me close my data dictionary, because if you had it open already, it won't do another pop-up. It will not create another window. So make sure if you click on it and you've already had the data dictionary open, it won't create another window. It will know that there's already a window open, so it won't create another one. So double check that you don't have the data dictionary window already open. That would show as if it's not popping up. And then if you're using Chrome, you might need to accept the pop-up from the site as well.
Okay, our next question. Is there a legend for DERF ballot, e.g. outcome column?
Okay, let me pull one up so we can, outcome column. Okay. And what was the question? What is it? What does it mean?
If there's
Is
a
there a
legend,
legend?
and at the bottom right there, it's approved, right?
Right. There is a legend, and you have to scroll all the way to the bottom. So A is approved, R is recirculated, and F is failed. So that's what this is in recirculation. These were approved, recirculated. So that's what the 1 means. Is there a 2? Here's the 2 with the ECL DERFs. And then the 3 would be held for release. Anything more you want to say about this table, Patsy?
The table in itself follows the ballot process, so coming out of, in this case, what Margaret is showing, coming out of the February 2016 workgroup meeting, we will have the ballots. So we named the ballots, we named the DERFs within those ballots for each of the standards, then of course the outcome, but it follows that flow. Then if it's approved, what's the data dictionary date that it's in, and what's the ECL date that you would find these in, and then the peach-colored columns are the ECL DERFs, which have different timetables, and so that I try to capture that so that you could follow those through. And to look at the emergency ECL, because many times I get emails from people asking that, no, you still have a January 2016 ECL associated with the October 2016, and that was because there was only a January published. But this would tell you if there's one published for that quarter, or available for that quarter. No more publishing.
So, right. Yeah. So here's an emergency ECL date.
Okay, our next question. When you look at an element in the data dictionary, is there any indicator that tells you that it's a shared value?
That it has shared values? Because
yeah.
Because it would tell you this field is shared standard. Maybe that's not a good example. Let me see. Find one with. So A in this,
right,
and then I. But I don't believe there's anything in the data dictionary that says this data element has shared values.
Okay, our next question. Oh, do you want to elaborate,
Go ahead.
Margaret? Okay.
No, I was just going to say, if you clicked on the external code list associated with that, you would then, in turn, I already had my ECL page up, so I just clicked on over to it, and then it would show you the values, and if there were shared values, as I demonstrated before, there would be another gray bar here that would indicate shared values.
Okay, thank you, Margaret. Next question, can I perform a global search, or must I designate the field name / description, etc.?
So I think the person wants to not select anything to search upon, just enter a value in this field, if I understand the question correctly. Let's try it. Let's do the search for field. And it will not allow you to do that without searching. You see the red? Hopefully that comes through, but it's red, and it's like, where do you want me to search? So you have to pick where in here you want to search for field. So the answer is no.
Okay, our next question. Are there any plans to make this data available in a format other than via the web browser? For example, will there be an API we could use?
That is on our roadmap to develop APIs, computer consumable ECLs in particular, as well as data dictionaries. We get requests quite frequently from companies, especially new companies in the industry, that want to be able to have something that's consumable by a computer versus having to type in information or that type of thing. So that is on our roadmap to have those type of things available.
Okay, thank you, Margaret. Our next question, should I be able to access the online DD and ECL now? I tried to access it using both Chrome and IE, and neither works. A few of us are having it doesn't seem to be working for many of us.
Yes, it is available. There's nothing special. It's been available since Monday. And I assume, again, these are members. They're in the member portal and cannot access it. I asked if you can't access it to send us an email. You can send it to me, Weiker, W-E-I-K-E-R, at ncpdp.com, .org, I don't know what my email address is, or to Patsy, P. McElroy, or Terry, and we could look into it.
Okay, thank you, Margaret. Our next question, is there a way to see which DERF added a new ECL code value or added a new field?
As Patsy described, there are the DERFs and then there are ECL DERFs. And from there, you could go into the publication modification and for the ECL. And this is a publication modification. For the ECL, the data dictionary has its own. So you could look through this and see where we added basis of reimbursement determination. We added a new value of 23. Here we added values. So if you look through the publication modification, it will show you what was added, changed, deleted, renamed, etc. Do you have any other info you would like to say?
Yeah.
Terry? I was going to say, Patsy, I thought you talked about adding a column that had the DERF number on here.
Yeah. Well, yes.
Okay.
Starting right now, there's, for what's available at this point, you almost have to interrogate, here are the DERFs that were in that ballot and hence publication, and to see what was attributed, what value or field was attributed to what DERF. So you have to interrogate that. It's starting with January 1st, 2017. Within this publication piece, you will have a DERF number associated with that change. It looks very similar to the ballots that were released in August that had these DERF numbers on them.
Okay, thank you, Patsy and Margaret. Our next question, some 2016 DERFs are still in process. With the movement of the DERF, how often is the DERF ballot site updated?
Patsy?
You mean the spreadsheet, if that's what we're talking about?
I think they said site.
So where the DERFs are on our website to pull up, if that is the question, those are updated quarterly after every work group. And I'm not sure if I properly answered that question because I'm not sure what it was.
I think they're concerned about this site now that it's in the browser web. How often is this updated that we're looking at?
The spreadsheet itself will be updated every quarter.
Right, and we will produce data dictionaries and ECLs just like we used to produce data dictionary and ECLs. We have to, once they're approved, then they would be loaded, but we're not going to load, let's say, an unballoted DERF on this site. This is only approved data elements, ECL code values. So we have, as I said, the 2017-01 is in process of being added. And as we implement each additional one, it will be added, you know, as quickly as we can do it. Sometimes it depends upon the volume of changes in regards to how long it's going to take us. And the last couple of ballots, the last one that was just finished and then the one that's going to be released out of the February work group meetings are very extensive, that have a lot of changes to a lot of the standards. So that will be somewhat delayed. But hopefully the schedule will be very much like it is today in regard to having the published versions, as you had come to know, available around the same time frame.
And just to make it clear too, the DERFs will not be attainable from this site. You can't pull up a DERF here. You would still have to go to our website to pull up those DERFs. On the roadmap, we are looking to try to get a link to, working on linking to those DERFs, so that you could look at the DERFs at the same time you're looking at a change.
Right. So, for example, you're looking at the October 2016 publication modification for the ECL, and as Patsy said previously, she's going to add a column that would have the DERF number. So then in the future, you would then click on that DERF number and it would bring up the DERF. But that is on our roadmap.
Okay, thank you, ladies. Our next question, will the new telecom standard be available via the web browser as well?
We have not loaded any of the actual standards and or implementation guides to the web browser at this point. So the next version of telecom that would be coming out of the February ballot, version F2, would be available via PDF But also on our roadmap is the addition of adding the standards to the website.
Okay, thank you, Margaret. Our next question. There are 3 boxes on a DERF for a new field: value description definition, value limitations. In the past, the PDF versions of the data dictionary and ECL did not include the very valuable information in the value description definition box. Will this new web-enabled version include that information?
Patsy, Terry, trying to think of a code.
Well, I'm trying to think of an example of that. If it's a definition of that, the second column was intended to define the value itself. So if it depends on what information was on the DERF. If the DERF gives usage rather than a definition, that's normally pushed to the EMP guide and not within an ECL. The third would be a limitation, and if the limitation is relevant, then it's put into the ECL and the value limitation column.
Okay, thank you, ladies. And our last question, can publication modifications be sorted by the columns?
Let me go back so I can make sure to see. I have to visualize it.
I don't think they can. I don't believe they can.
No, I don't think so either. No, because this is, for lack of a better word, a dumb document.
A table.
Yeah, it's a table. It's not a, yeah. No, so the answer is no, it's not. Right.
Okay, we have no further questions at this time. Is there anything else you guys would like to share, Margaret, Terry, or Patsy?
The only thing I think we did not mention during the presentation, which I thought of, was the shading for sunsetted values and how that's managed.
Yes. Do you have, Terry, a field that I can pull up? I know, it's like, oh, I mentioned it, but I can't think of a field.
Oh, well, there's one right there.
There's one right here. I'm like, wait a minute, there's one right here. So these, you'll notice, are a different color than like 01 and 00. The 00 and the blank have the shading, which means it's sunsetted.
And it'll also show in the shared code list as well as shaded.
Yes. Yeah, let me bring that up.
There we go.
Right. So you see that these are shaded, so blank and 00 aren't valid. Now, they are valid for basis of calculation flat sales tax, but they're not for basis of calculation copay or coinsurance, those type of things. They were, but they aren't now.
So for clarification, effective February 1st, we can no longer pull down a PDF version of the ECL, correct?
No. If you go back to ncpdp.org and you have the standards lookup, and you'll see data dictionary and external code list, and you can still pull up the PDFs. But the January 2017 will be the last PDFs.
You might want to
So you
display
can,
that verbiage at the top, Margaret.
Yeah, so you can still pull up if you need, for some reason, the October 2016. These are still available, but this will be the last one that would be available via the standards lookup. And then we have modified the verbiage when you go to the data dictionary and ECL search. To hopefully we've explained this clearly. But if you don't think it's explained clearly, let us know.
Okay, and at this time, we have no further questions. So that concludes today's NCPDP webinar, Web-Enabled Data Dictionary and ECL. Thank you, Margaret, Patsy, and Terry, for the time and expertise you shared with us today. Thank you all for your participation, and have a great day.
Thank you.